I thank the Speaker. As I was preparing to give remarks, I was listening to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. One of the points being raised was about champions of Title IX. And what would they say? I think that's a fantastic question. Just today in the House Judiciary Committee, we had a witness, a young lady who was a swimmer for the University of Pennsylvania. And I asked her whether Lia Thomas is a man or a woman. And this female swimmer replied without hesitation that indeed that swimmer is a biological male. Now, that gets sometimes dismissed as, I don't know, humorous or absurd or whatever in these culture battles. But the fact is, the young lady testifying was a victim of sexual assault and didn't want to have to be in a bathroom changing with a biological male. And yet my colleagues on the other side of the aisle dismiss it. They dismiss Riley Gaines' concern about competing against a biological male while they champion Title IX. You literally can't even make it up. Come to the floor, champion Title IX, and yet they destroy Title IX by virtue of saying, oh yeah, it's fine. Doesn't matter if you're a dude. Suit up, jump in the pool, and swim. I asked one of the witnesses today, I said, well, you know, is the International Federation of Swimming, or whatever it's called, is that some grand right-wing conspiracy? And she kind of chuckled and said no. She knew where I was going, which is that organization had banned Lia Thomas and other biological males competing against women in the 2024 Olympics. Because of course they did. At least if they're being at all rational. Doesn't mean that won't change. It doesn't mean that the irrational won't take over. It doesn't mean that the absurd won't define how we live our lives. But at least in this case, the committee said, yeah, maybe a dude shouldn't swim against girls in the swim meets. But my colleagues on the other side of the aisle dismissed that as right-wing lunacy, MAGA extremism. I never know what I am. I support Ron DeSantis, and I'm a MAGA hater. On the floor of the House, I'm a MAGA extremist because I dare to stand up for the American people who are sick of having their world turned upside down. Have my colleagues on the other side of the aisle saying, well, we have important work to do, but all they care about are book bans. Well, that's just a lie. It's just a straight up lie. The accusations of book banning. Do you know what kind of books have been put on the chopping block in Florida? Books that have straight up pornography in them that parents dared to say, wait a minute, I don't think I want that in the public schools library. Now wait, is that what a book ban is? Because if it is, sign me up. Sign me up. Because I don't want that in my kids' library, and that is actually the fundamental question. Are we going to stand up and say, we're going to stand up for our kids? Are we in this body are people who just want normalcy and their lives back in legislatures across this country and in governors' mansions across this country, going to stand up and say, yes, there is man and there is woman. And no, the men shouldn't compete against women in their swim meets or their track meets. And no, we shouldn't put pornography of any kind, straight, gay, otherwise, in the public libraries of our kids' schools, and then be labeled as book banners. Because if that's what you're going to do, I'm going to stand up and say yes. But meanwhile, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to shut down free speech. They want to say anything I'm saying. In fact, what I'm saying right now, they would say is disinformation. What I'm saying right now, they would say if I put it on social media, they'd be all too happy to have big tech companies or the power of government shut down my speech. Now, I'm protected on the floor of the House, but every American is supposed to be protected with free speech. And I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying that Lia Thomas is a dude, and I'll say it here, and I'll say it on social media, and I'll say it on the streets, and if they dare try to stop me, that's what the First Amendment is all about. And we're going to stand up and defend that. And we're going to stand up and defend normalcy. We had accusations that, oh, this is all made up. We actually had somebody in one of the hearings today in which we were talking about transgender issues and so-called, dysphoria. We had a young lady who I could barely speak after I heard her testimony. I could barely figure out what to say to her because she had started to be transitioned, changed sex, realized that she was going to lose the ability as a woman to breastfeed her hopefully one day children, and she stopped. And she was testifying today about the horrors of the pressure being placed upon her to change her sex. And she broke down in tears. And then she was talking about one of the other witnesses at the table, a mom that was talking about her child, the Democratic witness, and saying how important it was to be able to have the transition. And here's what our witness, Chloe Cole, said. Quote, "I understand that Mrs. Reynolds is scared for her child. And I just want to set the record straight that I don't hate her. I don't think anyone in this room hates her. In fact," she said, as she began to cry, and as all of us, by the way, on the dais were holding back tears, "I see my own mother and my own father in her. And that clearly she dearly loves her child. And she's doing the best with that she's been given. And unfortunately, it's not much. And for that, I'm sorry." She remained emotional. She continued, she said, "I think every parent deserves the utmost grace and guidance with how to help their child. I don't wish for her child to have the same result as I did," she said. "I don't wish for anyone to regret transition or detransition because it's incredibly difficult. It comes with its own difficulties, and it's not easy. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle call that hate speech. They say that if we bring these questions up about transitioning people's sex, their God-given chromosomes and sex, because we've got pressure on social media and the devil that is, or are, these devices that our kids spend hundreds of hours on, and you wonder, if I dare say that, oh no, that's hate speech. And if you think I'm crazy, look around the world. Look around the world. We had a public official in Finland who was being prosecuted last year, and is still having to go through it, for daring to have distributed materials saying that she believed in traditional marriage instead of same-sex marriage. She was being prosecuted despite being a member of the parliament. I'm just telling you, America, it is coming to a theater near you. Don't think for a minute that the people who are decrying what I'm saying as hate speech don't want me to be in jail for it. They do. In a heartbeat, I would be put in jail for daring to stand up in defense of my faith, my values, my beliefs, and in this case, for simply saying there is man and there is woman. That's where we stand as a society. I went on to, I heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and this is not what I came to the floor to talk about, by the way. But I heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle talking about schools and how we want to, scare parents by talking about these issues. This is all to scare parents, they said in the hearing. Well, how about this? Today, news report, Vermont School District removes male and female from the reproductive system lessons. Let that sink in for a minute. Just want you to think about it. What's the first thing you do if you're a farmer and you get a new calf, or you're trying to figure, what do you look? Is it a boy or a girl? What's the first thing you do when your baby's born? Well, is it a boy or a girl? They're literally taking out of the lessons in the Vermont School District on reproductive system, they're taking out male and female. That is so bat crap crazy I can't even possibly put it into words.